Alright, so in this screencast we're going to talk a bit about websites as you understand them right now, and then WordPress websites and how they're a little bit different, in fact a lot bit different, and hopefully we'll all learn something along the way. So I'm going to start with, this is just a simple web page that I whipped up in preparation for this video. This is something very similar to something that you guys have probably done before back in Intro to Web, where this is just a simple HTML page. Here you can see what it looks like. That's all code that you've written before. You've got your navigation menu right here. Here's a heading. There's a paragraph. I can go home. I can go to the About page. Go to the Contact page. All that stuff. Totally normal. And so, as you can see, this is hosted on the web. If I went to the back end of my website, or the back end of my domain rather, then I could go through the files and find exactly where these HTML files are located. And just give that a second to fire up. So I saved this. It's at iconfafsa.com, so that's the root, and then example site. So all this stuff must be in some folder called example site. And sure enough, there it is, right there. So I can take a look in it, and I have an index page. What does it look like in there? There we go. It's all just code, regular HTML markup, the kind of stuff that you've written before. And when I hit home, it calls up index.html. The browser renders it. Same thing happens when you want to check out About. There's the markup. There's what shows up on the web. So it's a very simple, very easy to understand, one-to-one. I wrote the content, I wrote this entire web page, I put it online, or I put it into my domain's backend, and then people on the World Wide Web can go and search for it. So let's look at something very similar on WordPress. This again is just an example WordPress install that I installed in preparation for this video. It's very easy to do this. I'll just delete this once I'm done recording this actually. So I've got basically the exact same thing on here. Got home, about, contact, sample page. I forgot to take that off. But this is the first page. I whipped this up in HTML to demonstrate a point. Same exact stuff that's right here on the home page for the straight HTML that I coded. I got the same pages, about, contact. You get the idea. So where would I find this? Where is the contact.html in my backend when I dig a little deeper on my backend files? So I happen to put this into a directory called example1, so I'll find example1 over here on CyberDuck, and there it is. And this looks a bit different. I don't see, I see index.php, I see readme.html, that's the only HTML page that I actually can see anywhere, and it just tells you a bit about installing WordPress and what version we're using. But I don't see contact.html, I don't even see contact.php. Maybe it's in there. Uploads, themes, plugins, maybe uploads. No, it doesn't seem to be in there either. Well, we're not going to search for it because it's not here. Even if we looked at index.php, then what would we actually find? Well, this probably doesn't make any sense. Honestly, to me it doesn't either, but that's okay. So what we're seeing here is that contact, there is a page, but there's nothing here in the files that would say contact.php or contact.html. It's absolutely nowhere here that I can access through CyberDuck. I'll tell you a story. Once I put in about 40 hours of work onto a website that I was building for UCAN. That's a college access program that's here on campus, and I did everything, and then I did something to break the site, and I thought, oh, well, that's okay. I'll just go into the back end, I'll find the content, and I'll just pull it out and copy paste it into something new. Well, I couldn't find it, and I freaked out. Don't worry, everything ended up okay. But what I didn't understand is that WordPress doesn't create an HTML file or a .php file or anything like that when you're creating content on WordPress. To do that would be kind of inefficient, because if you've got lots and lots of pages, then that means that you would have to have lots and lots of HTML files, and if any of those got lost, then you'd be out of luck. It needs to keep track of revisions. That would mean even more HTML files. It would just go on and on and on until you have this giant bloated 100,000 file directory for your entire website. And so what most content management systems do is something quite brilliant. Instead of creating an HTML page that has all the markup that would put the example, the site title up here, then the site description, then you have a navigation bar, and then you have the content, then you have a sidebar, and there's a comment section, there's a footer down here. All that stuff theoretically, practically could be put into HTML files and stored, and then through some fancy programming trickery would be called up when you need it. But they want to do something that's much more efficient than that. And so the basic principle behind WordPress is that it takes all of these individual characteristics of a page and it stores them into a really, really special, basically a spreadsheet called a database. It puts all these little constituent parts of the website into a database, and then these files here, wp-comments post.php, wp-cron.php, all these things ending in PHP are basically instructions for how WordPress should go about putting a page together using the data that you want. That sounds a little vague right now, but let's work through an example to kind of figure out what that's talking about.